Hello and welcome to this month's Homeschool Helps Hacks. I am Sunny. I'm Sonlight's Community and Social Media Manager, and I am being joined by all of your Sonlight mentors today. Our topic is Homeschool Help is just a click away, and we wanted to show you and explain all the different ways that Sonlight not only provides curriculum for you, but also helps you homeschool. So we are fully live. So if you have any questions, make sure to drop those in the chat. We are watching those and we will try to answer those as we get to them. If you've watched any of these events in the past, you know we are typically typing answers to you, but since we are all live on camera with you right now, we're going to be doing that verbally. So pop those questions in the chat. Tell us where you're tuning in from, what levels you're doing, and how we can help you out. And we are excited to introduce ourselves to you if you're brand new to Sonlight. So let's start with some introductions. Anne, it looks like you are on my top corner, so we're going to start with you. If you want to tell everybody who you are, how you came to Sonlight, and what you do, that would be great.
All right. My name is Anne. I came to Sonlight in 2007 when my oldest child was going to start pre-K. And what drew me to it was the books and the scheduling and the science. There are so many things that just drew me to it. And it is just a joy now that they are older to just be able to help people that are and come alongside people that are homeschooling. My son is now a sophomore in college and my daughter is a senior in high school. So this is my last year to homeschool.
Great. Well, thank you for being here. What program are you using this year with your daughter?
Oh, that's a good question. We are doing the 400 government.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, those of you that are still teaching, pipe in with that information too, what you're doing with your kids still at home. Amber, it looks like you're up next.
Yes, I'm Amber Severance. I am a consultant for Sonlight in the summers at conventions, and I'm a mentor on the app. As of this year, well, I started Sonlight way back when my first was going into pre-K. I heard about it from friends and fell in love with it and never looked back. As of this year, I've graduated 4 out of Severance Prep, and I'm currently teaching my 8th grade daughter using Level J with Matthew C. Algebra 1.
Thank you for being here. Jonna, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Jonna Lawrence. I work with Sonlight in their marketing and their product development. I am a veteran mom. You will have seen me at conventions. I have 4 children. They have all, at this point, graduated. They are fully functioning, semi-adult people. So,
thank you, Jonna. And Lisa, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I am a retired homeschool mom. My baby graduated from our high school in 2021. So we started in kindergarten and went all the way through high school. So I just love being able to help new moms as they start this journey.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Sheila, you're up next.
I'm Sheila, and I work as a Sonlight consultant and as a mentor. I have 3 kids. We started homeschooling in the year 2000. I discovered Sonlight at a homeschool convention, which is why conventions are so near and dear to my heart. And all my kids have graduated high school, college. They're all out there working in the world. And I have a child who's engaged. So we are planning a wedding. It's pretty fun.
That is fun. Jen, what about you?
Hi, I'm Jen. I discovered Sonlight when my oldest was too young to homeschool. So we started with Sonlight and never looked back. I just finished my last child is actually going to be going to public high school this year. So we use Sonlight for like 23 years. And yeah, you'll see me on the app. You'll see me at convention. I love working with homeschool parents. I believe in homeschooling. It's a great choice for so many people, but it takes a village to really kind of get your feet under you. So we are here to help.
Absolutely. Christy?
Hi, I'm Christy, and this is our 15th year of homeschooling with our children here at our home. I taught for 1 year with a 4th grader and a 7th grader. I always say I practiced on someone else's kids first overseas before I met my husband. And so now we are 15 years in and we have 2 in college, 2 in high school. This year we're doing, American history and so a freshman and a junior this year with Sonlight. answering questions. I got overwhelmed in the beginning, and so I love to help people so that doesn't happen to you.
Well, thank you all for being here. I'll fill in a little more of the details that I didn't about myself as well. So I'm actually a second generation Sunlighter. My parents discovered Sunlight back in 1997 at a homeschool convention and homeschooled me for 1 year. And then when my daughter was preschool aged in 2012, I started looking at homeschooling and knew that I enjoyed the literature focus of Sunlight and started with her, and it went so well. Here we are still all these years later. She is now a freshman in high school and my son is in 4th grade. And this year we are using levels 200, that's church history, and level D, which is the first half of American history. So I'm excited to be here. I always say I love getting the message out that the whole world should at least consider homeschooling. And I love helping other families, when they have questions and letting them in on the secret that it's not quite as overwhelming as we think it is initially. So excited to be here. Of course, right now we are at kind of that back to school time in the United States. So we know a lot of you are just starting out or getting back into the school year. So ladies, let's start with some top tips for back to school this time of the year, whether you're starting your school year now, or maybe some of our families will be starting down the line and want to look at this later. I forgot to remind you all that we are recording this, so you will be able to access it anytime. But ladies, why don't you jump in with some of your top tips for back to school?
I'll go first. My top tip, I feel so strongly about this. I just have to tell everybody, start slow. Because you're starting potentially, well, even if you've homeschooled for 10 years, you're kind of starting a new job every single time you start a new school year, because you're doing a different level and your kids are different ages than they were before. And it just takes time to ease into that routine again. So the way I like to do it is to take 2 days to do 1 day's worth of what's in your instructor's guides. And because then you don't end up at different places and different things. But that's okay too, if that does happen. But it really works well for the whole first week, just to take 2 days to do 1 day's worth, ease into it, find a routine. And I did it every year that way.
I would say, similar to Anne, give lots of grace, right? Lots of grace that first week, not only to your kids, but to yourself. Just have lots of patience with yourself and know anything new takes work at the beginning. It's not second nature right away. It takes practice. And I think another thing is to, you don't have to necessarily have a dedicated place to do school. That's one of the beauties of homeschooling, but it's helped me to have a dedicated place for all the books and the stuff. So if I have a place for all of that, that really helps my year get off to a better start.
My top tip is to take a minute on Sunday, Saturday. I always did it Sunday afternoon because that was quiet time, and get yourself set for next week. Sunlight doesn't require a lot of prep, but you do need to find the math book and find the reader. And sometimes it's not as easy as one might think. So take that 15 minutes, read over your instructor's guides notes for the week. Make sure you have all of your materials in a basket, like Amber said, something to corral it, and then you're set for the week. So if just 15 minutes of preparation saves a lot of tears during the week.
Lisa and I are twins, so I was going to say the same thing. I like to gather my materials before I start, so I'm not Monday morning going, oh, what am I doing and where's that book? And so if before you actually start, you can get together all the week one things and then take those week one pages out of that ginormous binder. Consider that binder your storage, like that's where the things live, but just take out the week one stuff and put it in something smaller. I always like to corral and make things smaller. I'm small, so I like to make things small. And so I find that if you start small, then you will go far.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love what you all are saying. Starting slow, starting small. You don't have to do everything the first week. I think sometimes when we're excited, we just want to jump in and do it all and take all the field trips and do all the extras and stuff. But if you start out kind of slow, like what you guys are saying, and start out with the basic things, getting organized, kind of getting your head on straight, then you'll be ready to go. And you can add those things later. It's always easier to add stuff later than take stuff away. We're seeing lots of people with kids of all different ages joining. I'm excited about that. We have preschool all the way up through high school levels, people that are watching right now. Some that somebody mentioned she saw Sheila at convention, met Sheila this year. So you've probably, even if you're new to Sonlight, have met some of these ladies over the summer, which is great. But we have a question from Peggy saying that she has 2 preschoolers and a 6-month-old baby. Any ideas for managing all the littles while reading? So of course she's going to be reading to older kids, but what do you do when you have a lot of distraction coming from those young ones?
Well, working at nap time is always a good strategy. With multiple little ones, you know, they don't always nap at the same time. When I had multiple older kids and a little one, I sometimes traded off, like, would you please play with the baby for a few minutes so that I can do XYZ with your brother? You know, delegate.
Yeah, I would say be encouraged, because I remember when I was in the thick of it with that I was always troubleshooting and trying to find a way to do things without. For us, it was a 3-year-old that would try to get in the pantry, and he would have, you know, cake decorations on his feet, and, you know, just he would decap all those strawberries and crack eggs in the floor, you know, all of these sorts of things. But on this side of it, I would say those the times that they were listening, where sometimes you don't realize they're listening, and they answer questions from something 5 grades ahead of them. You know, the 3-year-olds are amazing. They're listening, they're catching little things. And I've always said that it's kind of like having your own science lab for memory, for what they remember when they look at it years later, when they're of the age to do that level. And they're like, it's like, I know what's happening here, but I don't know how I know it. And we say, you were there, we were reading this, remember? And they're like, I know this page. This is so weird. So they're picking up things as you go. Include them. We did a little thing where we took turns with the youngest. Everybody had, if somebody finished their math early, or, then they would take, a 10 minutes, time period with the youngest. And then we would just kind of rotate that way. So teamwork for the 3-year-olds. That's, and
we also would I scheduled with the older ones to watch the younger one, but back when my oldest one was still kindergarten and I still had a toddler and a baby on the way, the high chair, the toddler, I would give snacks and things that was hard to get the snack out of while we went over words or lessons. And so confining those toddlers in something works. And the 3-year-old could spell the words sometimes when the kindergartner couldn't. So you're right, they absorb a lot of things.
We did a lot of high chair time and had special things like scissors or magic markers that you could only do while you were quiet in the high chair while we were doing school. Lacing beads was another fun activity. And so when we were learning, one was learning to read, the other one got a color sheet of the letter of the week. If it was B week, I'd print that off the internet and put it on the high chair. And often the 3-year-old was just right where her sister was. So yeah, and I say I never taught the baby anything. She just knew it all. Because she was always around.
That is so true. I joke that we have homeschooled our son since birth because he's 5 years younger than his sister. And so she was at that kindergarten age when he was a baby. And we just always kept him in the same room with us. I used baby gates to kind of keep him in one place. And I love what you guys are saying about special toys that come out or kind of incorporating them into school. We had a laundry basket full of things that would get dumped all over the floor, and he would, walk around and get into his little basket of toys, quiet toys, so that I could read to his sister. So yeah, love all of these suggestions. We do have from Amanda, she's saying busy work for the baby, little baskets of tasks. So she is corroborating with what we are saying here, that is absolutely the case. And yeah, all of us at one point had littles, and it does get easier as the kids get older and a little more independent, but you can also homeschool when you have young children as well. So let's talk about the lessons we've learned over the years. I know some of you hate when I say this because it makes us sound old, but between all of us, we have well over 100 years of homeschooling experience. So what are the things that you learned, or maybe that you wish you would have known when you were that new homeschool mom? What do you wish you could go back and tell yourself all those years ago? Or maybe some lessons that you've learned through years of homeschooling, that it's all going to be okay. Those reassurances that maybe some of our new homeschoolers are needing to hear right now.
You can't learn algebra while you're crying. Some days, some moments, you just have to put everything down, forget about the curriculum, reboot the child or the mom, and take a moment and then start over. Because no matter what I ever said or did, they could not learn anything while emotions were high and everybody was ramped up and everybody was mad or everybody was crying, or there's no way. It just is not going to happen. So sometimes you just have to stop and put the people before the curriculum and go from there.
Yeah. And those of us who have attended traditional school or maybe are bringing kids out of traditional school, I think one really important thing is that learning is supreme, not the grades. It's learning. Are we learning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm the one that came from public school teaching when I had my kids and then started homeschooling. And so it is really important to realize that homeschooling is such a different setting, a different mindset, is a whole different lifestyle. And you're, especially with Sonlight, you're not recreating, school at home. It's home school. You're just learning and being together, and it's a totally different mindset.
I learned that you can't do all your table work all in a room. It really worked to alternate sitting at the table and moving to the couch and doing read aloud time, going back to the table, back to the couch, and taking breaks.
Mm-hmm. I second that.
Mm-hmm. Also, there's no benefit to sitting in a chair all day. My kids have homeschooled on the couch, under the table, sitting at the table, standing at the table, outside, on the porch, on the exercise ball, in the rocking chair, on the trampoline, you name it. And if they're listening and they're learning and they're engaged, there's no benefit to butts in a chair.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're getting some questions about the echo, and I hear it too. So let's all mute ourselves unless we're the one talking, just so we're not getting that feedback. No, sorry, for those of you watching, we are totally live. So that's where we're getting some of this, I think. But yeah, and then when it's your turn to talk, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. But that way we're not getting any sort of reverb or echoing coming back. Sorry for that. But yes, I agree with what you ladies have said. And I know I've learned to chill out and relax over the years. For those of you who know me and the mentors know, I run kind of uptight. I'm a type A perfectionist for myself. But in raising kids and in homeschooling kids, I've learned to be so much more flexible and learned, I know you just said it, Amber, that the importance is learning. What are they learning? It's not about, did I read every book? Did I check off the box? Did I accomplish everything I wanted to do today? Because in the end, that doesn't matter. The goal is to educate the kids and for them to learn. And that looks different for every child. And one of the best things I think about homeschooling is that you are able to meet that child where they're at and give them an absolutely customized education based on their needs. So that is what I've learned, is just to relax a little bit. So for my other type A parents out there that might be very stressed about, how am I going to fit it all in? It does work out, I assure you, and you will learn that your kids learn differently maybe than you do, and they learn differently from each other. And you do learn pretty quickly and easily how to customize it for them. Ladies, let's talk about what we do, though, as the mentor team. Of course, it's not just one of us, it's this whole group, and we all bring different insights and things to people to help them homeschool. But let's explain kind of what our mentor team does, how we help people, and how we're here for them. I'm going to mute myself so that somebody else can talk.
Well, I think just like we're doing today with the questions, we can share our experience. One of my greatest joys as a mentor is to be able to encourage and pray with or for you. I have prayed with some people not in person, but on the minute, or just add them to my prayer list because there is power there. But I think just for me, when I was homeschooling, I didn't have a lot of friends that homeschooled. And if you went to talk to the people who didn't homeschool because you're having a bad day, their answer was immediately, hey, we'll just put them in school. And so that's not very helpful. When you've decided or you feel convicted or whatever your reason for homeschooling is, someone telling you, well, when it's hard, just quit. You wouldn't say that to someone who said they were struggling with their husband. You wouldn't say, well, just get rid of him and get a new one. So that's not good advice. So to talk to someone who you can vent to and say all the hard things and have them understand, yes, I know that, I've been there. So I think the mentors are a great place to do that because we've all been there. And we're probably not going to say, well, then you should just put your children in school.
Well, and to piggyback on what Lisa said, and what Sunny said, we have a lot of experience between us. And so among all the mentors, there are those of us who have dealt with learning disabilities, with gifted kids, with, kids very close together, with kids very far apart. We've handled everything from, moving a lot and military families and athletes and artists and college and not college and, all these different things, kids who are enthusiastic learners, kids who are not, kids who love to read, kids who struggle to read, kids who don't want to read. And so anytime you feel like there has to be an answer here, do I really need to reinvent the wheel? Asking on the app might get you a lot of information that you just haven't thought of yet, because we have a whole village out there, not just us, but all the other homeschoolers that have maybe seen what you're seeing or have faced your challenge.
Yeah, to go along with what Jen said, I think, you're not alone. So this great gift of the app and having us, but then also the entire community of people, you are not alone. I have never seen someone post a question or a comment that there weren't many other people who had that same situation or faced that same thing. So we love, we monitor that app. All of us check it daily. And so even if you post at a weird time, probably one of us will be paying attention at that moment. So we're here for you.
I keep muting and unmuting myself. Okay, I think I'm on now. And then talking about between all of us, I'm sure that every level of Sonlight has been done. And so if you're wondering, what you should do next or how you can combine, I did see a question just come through about how many cores, we call them HBLs now, History, Bible, Literature packages. Can you do it one time? I have a 6th grade, 2nd grade, and kindergarten. So we can help with questions like that. So in that particular case, I would say you could combine. You could do 3. People have done 3; they really have. I've done 2. The whole time, but you can combine the kindergartner and the 2nd grader, and then have your 6th grader working alone. So just any kind of situations like that, we have probably either been in them or we know the product well enough that we can help you make the decisions like that.
And to piggy on Ann's, I've done as many 3, but I've never done 4, but I had 4 children. So I always combined at least 2 together.
Yeah, so let's talk about that since that question did come up. I mean, I've only got 2 kids, so I only do 2. And I joke that I do 1.5 because I've always had a semi-independent child. Either my oldest was the only one I was educating, or she was semi-independent and my youngest was the one that I was spending all the time with. So yeah, we do 2, but I've seen 3 and 4 in the community, like these ladies were talking about when you hear other people talking about that. I'm going to piggyback on that question with not only how many can you do, but Kimber's question. She said she's a little nervous about having time to get through everything. So how long does it take to do HBL and language arts? They're also doing science. So it looks like she's combining, her kids are 8, 6, and then she has a 1-year-old. So let's talk about, some options for how many programs can you do? What should you do? When should you combine kids? Like an 8 and 6-year-old are perfect for combining, and some options for that. Like, how do we use Sonlight, and what are some ways that people can make it work for them? How long does it really take?
Well, the how long question is a little bit hard to answer because we don't know your kids. So if you have compliant kids who will do what they're told to do, then it'll take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a day, depending on the level that you're doing and the number of kids that you're going to be teaching at one time. But if you have kids who don't want to be doing it, or maybe they are late risers, so you're going to start later, you might be schooling 6 hours a day, but the kids are only working for 4 hours a day. I had a night owl. My youngest one, since she was little, was always a night owl. My husband and I are not. So that was a little bit of a struggle, but I finally quit fighting it and just let her sleep in, and I would work with the boys together. And then when she would get up, the boys would be nearing done, and then I would work with her. So my school day was much longer than the kids because I, spaced it out. And now she's a night nurse, so it worked out for her. But as far as combining goes, okay, now we're getting the echo again. As far as combining goes, if they're about 3 years apart, then you can combine the non-skill based subjects. So there are certain subjects that build on each other. So math is the classic one where you have to know your numbers before you can count. You have to count before you can multiply. And so that is a level that is hard to combine unless they are exactly at the same level. You have twins, or they're just operating at the same exact level. Reading is another one. You have to know your letters before you can read. So those are the skill-based subjects that each child will probably need to do at their own level. But the non-skill-based subjects, such as Bible, history, science, the read-alouds that you are going to read to them, you can just jump in. History is history. You don't need to teach 2 separate histories, or you don't need to teach 2 separate biologies or botany or whatever the science is. So those subjects lend themselves to combining as long as they're somewhere in the 3-year range. I think it would be hard to combine a 5-year, 6-year range. That's why Sunny has always done 2, because her kids are 5 years apart, and her daughter is very independent, and so she tends to work well on her own. So if you have specific questions about your kids and how to combine them, you can DM us, or you can reach out to the advisors. The advisors are a resource for you as well, and they are happy to help you figure out where you can combine and where you can save time and money in doing that, and it'll save your sanity as well.
I think with that said, we've also, I was one that was doing, multiple levels one year. And I encountered someone in the booth actually who told me that they were doing one level for everyone, and they had a range of ages. And so basically what they were doing, if that overwhelms you to think about more than one level at a time, if you just think that sounds like so much, then I would say, you can use one main level. And if you're studying American history for your older children, we do have, different basically sweeps through history. So if you're older, are learning about, the first part of world history in G, you can pick up some of the books that they used in B and use those with younger children that have come behind, and maybe read some of the things together and then some of the things you don't. So there's all sorts of things that Sunlighters do. We're a group of people as a whole that do a lot of things creatively. And so I've learned from just talking to other Sunlighters who do amazing things with one topic per year. So everybody does world history, or everybody does, that works well. It also works sometimes if you think that idea sounds amazing. It doesn't, there have been times that we were studying world history with one group and American history with another group, and we ended up all talking about Holland at the same time. And it was just amazing. It was something I couldn't have planned. So I wouldn't get too stressed about trying to get everybody on the same page. But I would just say there are different ways of doing it, and you may decide to do something different in next year than you did this year. And so just kind of keep an open mind about that, and then know that you have choices.
Absolutely. And I know somebody asked, what's the name of the app? We're talking about the app like but if you're not joining us in the app, you're not aware of the name of our app. That is the Sonlight Connections app. You can find it available for Apple or Android devices as well as online. So get in there. We do live events in there all the time. The mentors and myself are in there, and we love answering those questions that you may have. We do have a comment from Rachel saying that it takes her family about 4 hours a day to do 4 HBLs. So it just kind of depends. Yeah, again, on the age of the kids. I spend about 2 or 3 hours a day right now with my kids, but obviously the older they get, the more independent they get with their work, and the parent involvement drops from when you're managing a bunch of littles. But she also mentioned in the comments that loop scheduling is great for multiple HBLs, and we have somebody asking, what is a loop scheduling? So can you ladies define that? That is something that I really like to do with my younger child. He learns best that way. But let's talk about what a loop schedule is, and maybe some ideas for parents who don't want to do one day at a time as listed in the instructor's guide.
Yeah, I can answer a little bit about this. Can y'all hear me? Okay. A loop schedule, the basic premise is that, there are certain subjects you should do every day. Typically, math and reading, you want to be doing that every day. But then the other subjects, the history and the science and the read alouds, you loop those. So let's say you have to stop your school day at lunchtime because that's what you want to do. You've got things to do. So you do your math and you do your reading, and then you pick up the history. And if that's all you get done, that's all you get done. The next day, you do your math, do your reading, pick up your science. And so you're looping the subjects that you put in the loop so that you're getting to them. You're never forgetting them completely. If you don't get to it one day, you will get to it to the next. So that's one way to do that.
We used sort of a loop schedule in that we used a timer. And so if we had 30 minutes, that's how long we did history for. And we didn't worry about, it said stop on page 57 or whatnot. We read for however long we had, and then we went to the next subject for however long we had for that. So we were constantly running through ours, but not necessarily on schedule. And maybe we didn't get to science today, but then we would start with science the next day and keep running through. So the instructor's guide is just that, a guide. It doesn't have to be the boss of your homeschool. You get to be in control of your homeschool. But as long as you're getting to all the subjects on a regular basis, you can make your schedule work for your family.
And I didn't do a loop schedule. I would block schedule. So the two subjects that I would block were history and science. So we did history on Mondays and Wednesdays, and I would do a double day. So I would do Mondays and Tuesdays reading on Monday. And then on Tuesday, I would do Monday and Tuesday science. On Wednesday, I did Wednesday and Thursdays history. And on Thursday, I did Wednesday and Thursday science. And I just found that was less opening and closing of books. It was just one less thing to have to follow in the instructor's guide, and it just went smoother for us. I also would, the poetry book, I did not read it according to the schedule. Usually they have one poem twice a week, and we would do 2-3 weeks at a time. Like we would read 4 or 5 pages in the poetry book. I would check. And then when we would get to the week where we had left off, I'd pick up the poetry book again and we would read that. So that way, okay, Amanda is asking if I can repeat the block. So I blocked history and science because those are not skill-based subjects. So you didn't have to do those every day. And I would do a double day of history on Monday and a double day on Wednesday. And then Tuesday and Thursday, I would do a double day of science. So I hope that makes sense.
Oh.
John, I see you talking, but you're still muted.
I worry about everybody else's tech. I forget about my own. The question about Katie has about co-op, if you're using a co-op and you're using Sonlight, what do you do on your co-op days? I won't say I'm the queen of co-op, but I've done co-op since day one of co-op, of homeschooling my kids, and I still am involved. So no, co-op is school on its own right. It's a different academic day. It's like our academic social day for the kids. Until you can get your co-op to adopt Sonlight, it's just an extra day of school that you can mark off on your attendance, but it's not taking place of your Sonlight.
Well, we have a question from another Katie, I think, not about co-op. And she's asking, she is considering homeschooling her girls that are in kindergarten and 3rd grade. And she's saying, do you get a lot of complaints from your kids that they are bored? Do you think this is attributed to the time they are spending in public schools? So I would love to answer that question. That's a great question. Do we find that our kids get bored? What do we do? Maybe if we're teaching their siblings or we're doing other things, and, do we have to entertain them all day?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with being bored. Like that's just not a crime. You can be bored. I think when our kids are bored is when they actually learn the most. So no, I don't think you have to entertain your kids all the time. I always would invite my kids to do what I was doing. If you don't have something to do, you are welcome to help me prep dinner or work on the laundry or whatever it was I was doing. And I might offer some suggestions that are very open-ended, like, well, you could make a craft. I know that makes Sunny cringe, but we did have a craft bucket. You're welcome to go make a craft. You can go outside and play. You can play blocks, whatever that is. But no, I don't think there's anything wrong with children being bored. They need to find something to do. Maybe that comes from public school. I'm not sure. My children did not go to public school, so I don't have that as a reference. But for the most part, I don't think my kids said they were bored. They played, or they pretended, or read a book, or something like that.
Well, and compared to like elementary school kids who are in public school, I don't think that boredom is really a common aspect of being homeschooled, because like we do math, and then when you're done, we move on to something else. And then, we do handwriting or reading time or whatever. And then when we're done, we move on to something else. And so there's no blocks of time when you're just kind of waiting for everybody to be done. There are times in the day where you have to wait for mom to be available, or dad, or who's ever homeschooling. Because if I'm in the middle of something else, then you might have to wait your turn. But generally they find a way to either, find something to do, or sit and color, or, I always offered my kids chores if they were bored.
We had an older lady across the street from us who told my kids that bored people are boring people. So she threw the boredom back on them. I think there's been a little bit of research, maybe a lot, around this issue recently. kids need to be bored, it's typically in the boredom place where the creativity is allowed to come out. So I'm not afraid of that. And sometimes I wonder if our kids aren't just parroting saying they're bored because it sounds cool. That's my take.
Yeah, and I think sometimes I mean, I wouldn't make a schedule for them, but sometimes a few ideas, like Lisa said, open-ended ideas. I would say, hey, why don't you make yourself a schedule for tomorrow and write down the things you want to do, and then when rank those things or whatever. And over time, they learned. At first they were looking for what's next, because my kids, my oldest did start out in public school, and so he did want that. Oh, what's on the schedule now? What's on the schedule now? And I like what Brent Wilson has said. My kids think being bored is terrible. I think being bored can be a good thing. We may not reach agreement on this for a long time, maybe not until they are parents themselves, and that is true. I hope you can't hear right now, but my 14-year-old is playing his heart out on the guitar. My guys, when they had time, they started to crave that time. So one of my boys loves to write, and he's always writing. He's a teenager now, and he started this when he was in kindergarten, and now he loves to write. One of my guys loves to play the guitar. One loved to play the piano. One did like to play video games. We limited that, but they all work together and make up games that are hilarious, that they remember things they came up with when they were very small, when we were homeschooling. So the creativity, when they have enough time, I do think that it is valuable, and you have no idea all the things. One year they decided to make each other Christmas presents, and it was just things that they made, and it was amazing. And I couldn't have manufactured that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really fun to see what they do come up with, because we mentioned earlier the thing about taking turns when you're working with multiple kids. And it's during those times where they find something, to do themselves. And they know that our rule is you don't interrupt, the time with that I have with your brother, because you don't want him interrupting your time with me unless it's, a dire emergency. And so I've got one that's really creative and crafty. And she looked at found a little video about how to make a t-shirt folder out of cardboard. And so I had no idea what this cardboard was in her room. And she showed it to me. Like, look, you put your t-shirt on it, and you go flip, flip, and flop, and bam, it folds your t-shirt for you. So just the lifestyle we were talking about, how you're not at some other building all day long. You're actually at home, and you're taking turns, and they've got time to really do creative things and things that interest them in their spare time.
Yeah, and I definitely took the approach some of you said of, well, if you want me to help you find something, I can, but it's going to be, doing laundry or cleaning your room or things like that. And so the kids very quickly learned, okay, I don't want to tell mommy that I'm bored because she's going to make me go do a chore. Why don't I go find something to do? So yeah, I think what you all said, that creativity, it grows when they're given the opportunity to create their own schedule. But it is a little bit of a learning process that takes some time, but they will learn how to fill their free time with things that they enjoy. We have a great question here coming from Sherry. She's saying, my 13-year-old cried her first day because she missed school. She was a social butterfly at her previous school, but wasn't learning anything. And it was her idea to be at home. Not sure what to do. So what do you do with a child who enjoyed the social side of school and is missing that?
I think anytime you make the change from one type of school to another, you have to allow for a period of decompression. And so even if she's going to love homeschooling, she might spend the first day or the first week or even, a longer period of time than that missing what she has, because choosing one thing is giving up something else. And so I think I would probably be talking to her about why we're doing this, why she wanted to, and see if you can't get her to focus even temporarily on the things that are better doing it this way, the things that were her goals when she wanted to be brought home. And, if she can focus on those things a little bit. And then I would give her some time, like in the evening or, this weekend or whatever, to be a social butterfly and to remind her when the upcoming time is when she will get to see her friends, talk to her friends. Just because you're homeschooling does not mean she's going to be locked in the house.
Yeah, I love that, Jen. And I think we saw this in 2020 with people who kind of decided to homeschool. I had a friend who said, "Oh my word, I thought my daughter was going to be so, bored and not have friends, but what happened was it just flipped." So we were alone during the day, but we were out almost every evening, and we had activities and we had stuff to do, and the weekends were packed and full. So we were home during the day doing school, but we had our evenings and other times for fun. So you are too new into this week for her to know that yet, and for her to have that difference. But I think for you to validate, just like Jen was saying, that choosing one thing means there is a give and take, and there are things that you are going to miss. But let's give it time. And like we said way at the beginning, anything just takes time to get used to.
I think too, if you can get at what is the thing that is being missed for our kids. My son was much younger. He wasn't 13. He was in first grade when we came home. But for those who have younger children who are in this adjustment time, and then for your 13-year-old as well, I think if you can have a discussion, and I think we can all relate to that feeling of, oh no, we've made a mistake. This is horrible. We're all going to have a day like that when we first start something. Did we make a big mistake? Is this what we're really supposed to be doing? That kind of thing. But I think, after kind of drilling down to what it is that you're missing, what it is that you want, how can we solve this problem within what we've chosen for this year? For my son, I was hearing him say things about wanting to go to school, and after we really got a chance to talk about it, I realized that the thing that was bothering him, he was a car line kid in first grade, in kindergarten, where I picked him up each day. And so he never got to ride the bus. So he was mourning the fact that he never got to ride the bus. When it got down to it, going to school, he was holding out hope that he was going to get on the big cheese. And that had not happened for him. So that was the big thing for him. And that year that we started homeschooling, we actually got to go on a big trip with a group from our church, and we rode on a bus, and he was so happy, and that was the end of it. Now for 13-year-olds, that's going to be a different, his solution was much simpler as a first grader, but have a conversation and try to find out exactly what it was and how can we solve that within what we're doing this year. I think that you can have a discussion about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know the pastor at our church, the youth pastor, actually reached out to us because a family had contacted him and said, "We pulled our 7th grader. She's looking for friends. What do we do? Do you know any other homeschooled kids?" And so he reached out to all the various homeschool parents. My daughter's 14, loves people as well. And they started emailing and then met at youth group one night, and then were able to start hanging out. So there are resources like that available if your child is going to youth group or something. Check with the youth pastor, see if they can connect you to the other homeschooled families. Join a co-op, find activities for that child to do. I also have an incredibly social daughter, and so we have to keep her in theater and dance and various activities just because she wants to be around other kids her age. But I agree with what you all are saying, that it's going to take a little time to mourn what she doesn't have at school, but there's still ample social opportunities available for kids that age, other homeschooled kids, or even after school type activities where they can be around kids that are going to school. We have a question from Leslie asking about her daughter's in 5th grade, and she's asking if there's any other subjects that they need to do besides reading, math, history, and science. Of course, Sonlight sells the all subjects packages that include all of that, but do you need to worry about electives, or how do you figure that out if there's any special classes a child should be taking in kind of that upper elementary, middle school age?
Well, I would look definitely for what your child is interested in. If your child is interested in learning a musical instrument, then I would look for an opportunity to do that. Or if they're interested in learning art, I would look for an opportunity to do that. And I would also check with my state requirements. I want to make sure that I'm doing what the state requires. I know there are some states who do require maybe a state history or fire safety or something like that. But do you have to if it's not required? No, I don't think you do. I think that allows them more time to explore their own interest. But I think it's really a call for your family and just making sure that you're following the right law.
Yeah, I agree with everything Lisa said. And I kept an eye on what Sonlight had as electives. You can see on the website different elective packages. And we did get some of those and really enjoyed them, but it's really just individual, up to you what you like to do.
I wanted to expose my kids to different things. So we did do things like art classes. I'm not artistic. We did do artistic pursuits, which Sonlight offers. And then I also got them into an art class that was being offered to local homeschoolers. We did some music lessons. Neither one of my kids are really gifted in either one of those areas. So we did not pursue it very far, but I wanted to see what they might be into. My daughter ended up doing photography because she wanted to, but it was more at the middle school, high school level. So it's really up to you. If you feel like you are already drowning with those 4 subjects, I wouldn't try to add another thing. But if you have a child who likes to draw or, is asking for a certain thing, then I would pursue that. I also taught my kids to cook. I love to cook. I love food. And so I would, it wasn't a formal thing. We didn't have like on Thursdays at 2:00, we're going to cook. But whenever the opportunity provided itself in the summer times, we learned to bake all kinds of cool things, bagels and pretzels, soft pretzels and stuff like that. And now all 3 of my kids can cook well, but it's just because it was really just kind of a part of our family culture. So don't feel like everything you do has to be an official class or a curriculum or something that you do. It could just be your gifts that you impart to your kids.
Okay, sorry. I saw a question earlier that we skipped over, and that was if the curriculum's written for 36 weeks, when do we plan when we start or finish our year? Of course, we've talked about how when you're homeschooling, you have the freedom and the flexibility to define what classes your child takes, what activities you pursue. But what about that scheduling piece? Does it matter when you start or not?
So I had several years where we had to be done with school by a certain date in May. Had to be, because our summer would not allow time for responsible homeschooling. So I marked that as week 36, and then I counted backwards, and I blocked out all the weeks that we were on vacation or we were having visitors or whatever, holidays. I usually assumed that we would be like non-functional because of illness or some surprise thing about 1 week a year. And I just counted backwards and then figured out when we needed to start.
Another thing that I've heard of people doing, I've never done it myself, but doing 6 weeks of school and then taking 1 week off. And that gives you a little bit of a refresh. So I've heard that being called Sabbath learning, because, it's like the 7th week is your Sabbath week.
Yeah, those are both great approaches. In our house, we kind of plan loosely what dates we want to get done by. Sorry, Lisa, I'll let you jump in here in just a second. We plan the date that we want to get done by and count backwards, but I usually allow 3 to 4 flex weeks in there because we never know, is family going to come to town and we want to take school off that week? Or like what Jen mentioned, sometimes a kid's going to get sick, you're going to get sick, you're not going to be able to get work done. But I allow myself the full year to finish everything. So there might be a few read real-outs that we didn't finish within our official school year, or maybe a week's worth of math or something like that. We're going to finish that at the tail end of our year and kind of let that carry into summer. But of course, we have the flexibility to start when we want, so we can take a longer summer break as well if we want, or like what Anne was talking with, more of a Sabbath school approach. You can school year round. A lot of homeschoolers do that as well. What were you going to say, Lisa?
We did school year round. Our thing was always, we're going to do school unless something better comes up. So we just did school. I found my kids did better with their routine if there wasn't something major going on. So we just were constantly in school unless we weren't. And I'm not a very flexible person, but that part was very flexible.
And we followed the traditional school schedule. We lived in a neighborhood with friends who went to school. And so when they were available, my kids wanted to be available. And when school started, that's when we started. So the answer to the question is that there's no one right way. You can do what works for your family, and that's okay.
Absolutely. And we'll tell you that a lot, that there is no one right way. There are as many ways to homeschool as there are people homeschooling. So that is true in a lot of areas. But yeah, definitely with that scheduling piece. We have a question about the recording of this webinar. Yes, it will be available in our Sonlight Connections app. Hopefully tomorrow we'll have it posted there. So check back there. That is the Sonlight Connections app. We have an interesting question here from Aaron saying, do you have any tips or suggestions for ways to take educational trips, but on a tight budget? I wish our state laws would change and offer more tax allowances for homeschool related travel. What do you guys think? I know a lot of us have done some really cool field trips, where we've incorporated travel and homeschooling together. But what do you guys think about that?
I think that there's usually a treasure trove of great field trip options locally, no matter where you live. There are cemeteries to go to, which might sound morbid, but there's some really old cemeteries, little museums that are all around. I happen to live in Central Virginia, so Appomattox is 20 minutes away. So I think really having an eye out for what you have close by. It is just the truth that none of us have I don't think anyway. I don't know if anyone of us who are attending right now as mentors have a limitless amount of funds to go on field trips. And I think that's an area where I tend to envy what I think other people are able to do and budget in. And so I think it's just saying, okay, this is where God has us. This is the amount of money we have. What can we do? And so when you plan, when we haven't been able to do these amazing field trips, but once in a while we will plan to do a trip and then find places along the way as we're going. So incorporating that kind of stuff all the time is really my suggestion.
I love that, Amber. We did a lot of that as well. I live in Florida, and we would look for state parks. They would often offer things. We had like living history type parks where you could go and be a pioneer. St. Augustine is not far from my home, and it's the original oldest city in the United States. A lot of people think it's Jamestown. It's not. It's St. Augustine. And so we would take advantage of that. We have lighthouses that we can explore. And a lot of places now actually give homeschool classes because they can offer those during the day when kids are in school. And so it's an income stream for them. If you can get some friends together, you can often get a discount, a group discount, or an educational discount. Another thing we did was we joined our local zoo when we lived in Tampa, and it had a reciprocal membership. So if we went to other towns, I would see if they would accept our Tampa Zoo membership so we could go and visit other zoos. Also, our Museum of Science and History also had a membership, and it would be reciprocal with other children's museums and things like that. So sometimes there is an initial investment, but then you can, take advantage of that if you're going to be traveling to visit family My husband traveled a lot for work, so I would joke that we're not homeschooling, we're car schooling, because we would pack up and follow along with him and then explore wherever his work took him. So you can try to piggyback on some of those things if that's a thing for your family.
Jamestown is the oldest English-speaking settlement in North America, but St. Augustine is definitely older. And that is very cool. That's one of the places that's still on my bucket list. The other thing I was going to add to what Amber and Sheila said is sometimes just as families, we have to travel for different reasons. You have to go to see your parents. You have the opportunity to do, like Sheila said, piggyback on a work trip, whatever. And we always took advantage of those things just to get to go somewhere new and see what the local stuff was there. Don't be intimidated by the fact that it's not like, Poughkeepsie, New York is not quite Paris. There's cool stuff everywhere. And if you just take the opportunity to go and do the things you have the opportunity to do, it actually can get to be a long list of neat places you've been.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
It's real quick. Something to think about also, like birthday gifts or Christmas gifts. Instead of, just saving up money to give people more stuff, you could save up the money to get things like those passes that the others were talking about to the different museums or zoos and things like that. And a lot of places do have homeschool days where they might have reduced prices and encourage people to come out during the daytime. So you can look at all the various zoo museum websites and things and look for that kind of thing too.
Yeah, I agree. We have relatives who send us national parks passes and various things like that because that's what we've asked for with our family. But when all else fails, YouTube is a plethora of cool travel experiences that you can see and learn about places. There's virtual tours. We've had fun just looking up, the inside of whatever building we were learning about, or watching people's vacation videos as they travel to these places, and you get to hear other languages and see what it looks like and all of those different things. My youngest really relates better to a story if he can see what it looks like. Otherwise, he's just imagining what his own life looks like in the places he's been. And so oftentimes we will take our read alouds, and after we've learned about a new place or, a different time period, like it might be the Vikings, we took a virtual tour of a Viking museum in Denmark online. And so a lot of things like that allow you to see places that you may or may not be going to. So that's another great option. We are running out of time. So I know there are more of you that have asked questions in the comments. If we did not get to your question, please post that on the replay in the Sonlight Connections app. Like I mentioned earlier, we will have this available in the app, and all 8 of us are in there in the app. So we will see those questions and be able to answer you further there. We also loosely touched on the fact that we have advisors who can help you pick your packages or make determinations on what you want to order through Sonlight. If you go to our website, sonlight.com/contact, you can see all the ways to contact our customer service team, to contact the advisors if you need advice, or again, in the Sonlight Connections app is a great place to find all of us. We love to encourage you, offer advice, and pray for you. So we do want to hear from you. Get in there, join us, and ask us things. Show us photos of what you're doing your first day of school. We love celebrating with you as well. So come join the community over there. If you're not already part of it, we would love to help you out. And to all of you that are joining me live today on camera, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your advice, and then also rolling with the punches when it comes to technology. We are so glad that we were able to be here for you all today. Bye, everyone.